everyone, and welcome to Coproduce Care's Chat for Care. And this evening we'll be carrying on the theme on commissioning and social care. And I'm delighted with the two guests that we have today. So we'll be kicking off with Emma Back from the Equal Care organisation Co-op, which is the UK's first platform-based social care and support cooperative. So this is again another way of commissioning care. And then we're going to move on to talking to Brendan Martin, who's going to elaborate more on what a lot of people in commissioning know about, but I know very little, and that's the Buurtzorg model. So from Buurtzorg UK. So two fantastic guests. As always, we try to bring you something different, Co-Produce Care. But as we always ask people, we are a non-profit organisation. We want more people to hear about what's going on in social care. So like us if you're on Facebook, give us a thumbs up. Let us know that we're doing the right stuff. And if you're on YouTube, then subscribe and click on the bell, because if you don't click on the bell, then you're not going to know when we go live. And of course, if you're watching us on Twitter, then share, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, and try and get as many people over to this channel as possible, because we want more people to understand different ways of commissioning. This whole host of live streams that we've done the last couple of weeks has been around doing commissioning differently. So last week we had a couple which you can catch up on. And we talked about compassion and compassion. We also talked to we also talked about commissioning the community. And of course, today we're going to, again, I feel like all of those are to do with alternative ways of commissioning social care. But today we're going to carry on that theme and look at some other examples. And as I explained last time, we are doing it slightly differently to how I'm used to doing it. I normally meet my guests and I spend time speaking with them beforehand and get to know them. So I kind of know what I'm going to be talking about before I do them. But this time I'm going to be asking some of the most basic questions, because I've left that to one of my team who's done a fantastic job, better than me, in helping organize these. So I will be getting to know them at the same time that you are with me. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask, then put them in the chat. If you're watching live, let's get a conversation going. It doesn't even have to be a question. It just can be a thought of the model of commissioning that they're discussing. So it's very free, it's very open, then please do that. And then we'll try and get through as many of those as we can. And as I say, do share this as much as you can. So that's enough of me babbling on. As you know, if you watch this regularly, I do tend to do that. So I'm going to introduce Emma into the live stream in a second. And we're going to talk about the work that they're doing. And you'll get an opportunity to find out why they do things the way that they do them, the kind of funding structures that they look at, and why they're innovative. And the whole idea of the Equal Care Co-op is really interesting to me, and it could be something that might be the way we go forward after the pandemic, because obviously social care has had such a spotlight on it, and we're still in the midst of so much, and it does seem a little bit indulgent to think about where do we go post-COVID, but maybe this is a better way of doing things anyway. So let's bring Emma in and say hello, and then find out more about her organisation. Hello, Emma. Good evening.
Hi, Sophie.
How are you today?
I'm okay, thank you. Yeah, feeling a little bit discombobulated after another weird pandemic day, but you know.
Yeah, tell me about it. I totally. It's like, yeah, you don't know whether you're coming or going. There's so much coming out. I'm thinking all the stuff in my inbox I need to get through about vaccines and everything else. But let's not talk about that just yet. Let's have a nice diversion and talk to you about your organisation. So we've got at the bottom of the screen there, people can see your Twitter handle, Equal Care Co-op, which is your organisation anyway. Let's talk about what the Equal Care Cooperative is and also your role in it.
So I tend to explain this differently every time. So we'll see how it goes this time round. Equal Care is what's known as a multi-stakeholder cooperative. So we're owned by the people who contribute their labour to the co-op, whether that's paid or unpaid, owned by the people who get support from the co-op, again, whether they are receiving that voluntarily or whether they're paying for it, and family members who participate in cooperative membership on behalf of people who are too unwell to do it themselves, so that there's still representation. We also have a small class of investor members, but they aren't allowed to have over the cooperative, but they are allowed to invest. We're building what's known as a platform co-op, which is a term that's become kind of more popular over the last couple of years, but is still a little bit kind of odd. It basically means that we are developing a digital platform, so a product that is co-owned. So it's not there for the purpose of value extraction, it's there for the purpose of value generation and to support the people who participate in it. Unlike, say, Uber or Airbnb or TaskRabbit, which are all looking to extract profits and line the pockets of their venture capital investors. So the purpose of the platform is to be able to facilitate the care and support. So people looking for care, people looking to give it, choose each other. So that's kind of the first piece of it, is that you choose who gives you support and you choose who you give support to. We have been kind of pilot here over the last year, actually kind of developing this on the ground while we build the platform itself, which isn't out yet. It's going to be launched in January. And the way that we think about support is in teams. So the person who owns the team or who leads the team is the person getting support themselves. They then choose who their team members are. So it could be family members, it could be peers, and it would be currently independent care and support workers that are coming to them through the platform. Now, we're still charging out at kind of normal agency type rates. So for home care, I should add. So that's around like 16, 17 pounds an hour. But the workers themselves are getting an actual decent wage at around kind of 14, 15 an hour. And they're kind of much more in control of what the work looks like and what it includes. So far, Teams is working really well. It's something that we're kind of building into the platform itself. For me, it feels very much like this is co-production at its heart. So we're kind of moving the locus of power over the care and support from the decision and province of the manager or the team leader or the supervisor or kind of whoever it is who kind of makes a risk-based decision to the team members. And then those teams work in a self-managed way. So some teams that are working, like it's very much like the person who's getting support is like the chief exec. So they say, right, I need this, I need that. Like you are very much, I am in control and I'm coordinating my team members. For other teams, it's kind of more holistic. So the tasks will get shared out between team members. It's not really clear who's leading, but kind of all work is getting done. We've recently tried mapping out the shapes of teams, and they make very different shapes. And yeah, I won't go into that too much. But so that's kind of in terms of where people are getting the money from. I'll just come onto the commissioning bit. At the moment, it's all through care and support budgets, so NHS, local authority, personal budgets that people are getting support. And next year, we'll be kind of looking to go for block contracts, which is where our approach to open tendering comes in, which is kind of radically open and transparent tendering and commissioning, which is a project we're working on at the moment.
Okay. This is really brand new way of doing things to me because I'm very used to the traditional model. which is top down. You've got like a management organization that manages all the relationships. Obviously, they've got to pay their HR, and depending what kind of organization you are, like if you have investors, you've got to give them a slice, all of those type of things. And then obviously workers get a lot less. So this is a very great way of ensuring that people working in social care do get more of the spoils of what they're actually doing. So that seems to work really, really well. And I know that's what people are talking about during the pandemic. And you've got our key workers who are out there in the field. They're basically, they make the kind of army soldier type comparison. They're there on the front line. And of course, that some people are earning the minimum wage. So that's a really good point. I do have to just say to people, I know that I think your internet is a little bit glitchy. So do people put in the comments if it's too glitchy for you, but I am hearing you just about fine. So we will continue. But what I would say reminds me of Helen Sanderson. I don't know if you've heard of the wellbeing teams, where they try to have more of a flatter team structure. So it's less hierarchical. It does remind me of that. And also, I want to kind of dig down into how it was created. So this cooperative idea seems like you have all the stakeholders are involved in some way. So how was it started? How long has it been going for? And also, do you find any conflict between having so many people involved and not really having that hierarchy, or do you have some kind of accountability at some level?
So I'm working out which question to answer first. So we use a system of governance called sociocracy. So that's like the next layer up from the teams. So if you think of the teams as being in charge of the care and support, they have control. Then the layer kind of beyond that, with a broader focus, is circles. So that's the care and support that goes on in particular areas. So they would be kind of contract holders. They would be managing particular areas of the cooperative's work. And those circles are also self-managing, so they operate by consent, and then roles are nominated into that. So there is accountability, there is a hierarchy. But if you think of it as a kind of almost like a sort of like a biological hierarchy, like a sort of phylum, rather than, this is a sort of command and control kind of way of working. So each circle has its own domain. And each circle is kind of fully in charge of that domain. We've worked very closely with Helen. She kind of, we started talking a couple of years ago. Some kind of key differences. So people know of teams in social care mostly as like circles of support. We've kind of switched around those two definitions in order to really emphasize where the control is. And then kind of at the moment, all of the people giving direct care and support, we all do, but people doing it kind of all the time are independent workers. So this means that the levels of support that they give from like week to week is kind of really variable. So instead of having people kind of on rota and on shift, it's like if you're going to join a team, then the timings for you participating in that team and being a member of that team are worked out between you and the person getting support and the other members of the team. So it's much more like the worker is attached to the relationship, not to the fact that they are part of a team of other workers, although there's also support for that as well, which we do as kind of workers process groups. And your primary kind of unit, if you like, is the teams that you are a member of. So the largest number of teams that we have of one person, he's in 6 teams, and that's enough. And that's 6 people. Whereas in home care, you might end up supporting like 20, 25 people in an average week. We recently just took somebody on who said, I think like I really love my job, but I feel like an Uber driver. So the existing framework of care and support is basically gig economy, where you get kind of told where to go, told who to support, and told what to do in that support, and told what to write about it. So the level of kind of control that you have over your own life and your own livelihood is horrific. So you get really miserable. Yeah.
So what do you think about the people that use your services? Are they quite independent? So they don't have particularly very high needs?
No, we've got all sorts. So there's one person who's has motor neurone disease, so is approaching the end of his life. We have a couple of other people who are at quite advanced stages of dementia. We also support people with quite severe learning disabilities and autistic people.
So how do they then manage their care within the team?
Well, it depends on whether, so they would choose somebody who they trust. So it's like you can delegate, right? So some people don't want to delegate, and that's fine. But you can choose as the team owner to delegate those sorts of tasks to somebody that you trust. And that might be an independent worker who's been with you for a while. It might be family member, or in the first instances, as you're building the team, that would be with the support of the Equal Care facilitator, which is kind of like the coach in Buurtzorg. So the facilitator helps to support the team to grow, and then they are on hand for kind of issues and sort of helping people to have difficult conversations, and helping to kind of resolve.
So is the facilitator like a traditional social worker?
Yeah, that's probably the closest analogy to their role. It's probably close. That's analogy is closer than, say, a manager, or than yeah.
Because I'm just thinking in traditional services where you would have a social worker, for example, would say to a care organisation, we have somebody who's just come out of hospital, they don't have any family, they also don't have mental capacity, for example, they have high needs, and who would be the person who then bridges the relationship between what that person needs and the commissioning authority, who may be them, if they are, or might be the local authority. Who would be the person who does that?
Well, I mean, people who already have social workers, obviously the ones who are managing the support package through the local authority, but then it's the facilitator that would then help set up the first team. So that's kind of going on and looking at profiles, kind of going, all right, I think I'd like to meet this person, or I'd like to meet that person, and then kind of checking in, helping people to make those agreements in the first instance, and then kind of setting up a shared group, which is then where kind of all the coordination takes place.
Great. And that's everything that you would manage within the Equal Care Co-op. And that person works with you as a team. Good. That sounds really good. So I finally got my head around it. Sorry. I got there. Yeah.
It's really simple once you get, but then yeah, something really simple means that you have to kind of completely restructure the entire organization, and to some extent how commissioning and procurement works to make it work.
You have to unthink I have to unthink the way that I know care is delivered through my organizations that I know of. So that's why I had to kind of ask those questions. I'm sure other people who are watching might wonder as well, who aren't as familiar. So I mentioned a little bit about the quality of the working standards for care workers under this model. It seems really, really positive. Are there any caveats that you see to this model, or things that you feel that need to be improved or looked at? Could it be, in order to be like
so much training and support with you have to unlearn so much. The people who are coming to us are institutionalized. We are institutionalized to expect command and control and hierarchy and hierarchical forms of power, and to have to ask for permission all of the time, rather than kind of be freed up to kind of be creative and to make agreements with the people who actually matter the most. And those are the people who are getting the support, family members and other people in your team who are also giving direct support. They're the people who are going to make the best decisions about care, not the manager. The manager's going to take it from the CQC or take it from the regulations, and that's where that will come from, which is useful, but it's not insight. So in terms of like a caveat, it's we need to do a lot of support, a lot of training, a lot of kind of I don't know really how to put, but like sort of just the power of it is in the everyday conversations, where if an independent care and support worker kind of comes to the facilitator and says, please can I do this, or please can I do that, then the response is usually ask the person or ask the team, or kind of suggest it in the team and discuss it in the team, rather than looking for that kind of, yes, I've had permission to do this, and so now we can do these next few things.
And how does it, so it's regulated services, so you've got a relationship with the CQC. How do you find that they work with your organisation?
The CQC are amazing. They really want to change. They really do.
That's good. So they really
yeah. So one of the casualties of coronavirus was the sandbox scheme for community-led home care, which we were on for 2020. Unfortunately, the person who was leading on that scheme in the CQC has since retired, but there will be guidance coming out to support community, like organizations that work in the way that we do, to be able to do this kind of much more holistic kind of, to be able to operate using this model under the existing regulation. So we're regulated as a domiciliary care agency to offer personal care, and this does work within the existing guidelines. It's a bit of a stretch, so hence the new guidance that's going to be emerging soon. CQC have also done some guidance around what actually constitutes an introductory agency and what that really is, given the kind of the number of like platform-based for-profit models that have been popping up all over the place over the last few years. But yeah, CQC they're marvelous.
That's really refreshing to hear, because from our experience, when you do introduce a new concept to a system that's so used to working in a certain way and is dominated by a certain way of doing things, to actually get them to understand the way you're doing things is different, but it's safe and people are happy with it and it's working, and you're still within the guidelines and you're still getting the paperwork that they need, because it's all about evidence and how you evidence it. I think that's a whole different conversation. I'd love to know how you're doing that, but that can be a bit of a stretch. That's really good that you've got people on board, and presumably you had them on board maybe from the start, so they just understood the concept, so you weren't having to backpedal with everything. So because it obviously you're down as a domiciliary care agency, but you are nothing like a traditional domiciliary care agency. So yeah, really interested. Okay, I'm going to come back to you, and I specifically want to come back when you were joined together with Brendan to talk about how this is working within the COVID environment, and also why your concept seems to have so many benefits, but yet we're still working within a system that seems to be very narrow-minded, very illiberal. So let's think about those questions for when you come back in. But I'm being reminded by my colleague in the background that I'm running over time with you. So I'll have to say, we want to hold for a bit, and you're able to join us maybe in the next 20 minutes or so. Great. Okay, we'll see you in a sec. Thank you, Emma. So that was really good. Sorry if I was asking some really basic questions to people who know Emma, know her organisation, but I'm just getting my head around it, and I do love the concept. So very, very interesting. And I'm going to bring Brendan now in, because another fantastic guest is going to talk to us about another model, which I think is quite similar to what Emma was talking about, but we'll see. So thank you for joining us, Brendan.
It's great to be here, Sophie, and lovely to meet you too.
Fantastic.
And to hear about what Emma's doing up in Yorkshire. I talked to her about that 2 or 3 years ago, and from time to time since then. So she's obviously going great guns.
Right. Wow. See, that's good. That's good to know that you know each other. And I feel like within social care, there's a lot of people who are doing some really progressive things, and there's kind of bubbling under the surface. And hopefully, like programs like this will start to highlight what you all are doing and open up people's minds to different ways of working within social care.
Yeah, there's some great initiatives like Social Care Future are doing, bringing together lots of different perspectives, and I think trying to change the conversation. Not just Social Care Future, but we recently took part in one of their events, and yourselves, Coproduce Care. So it's great to be part of this.
Thank you. And what I like about it, you've got Social Care Futures looking at the conversation and talking about a new way of conceptualizing what is care provision. And then you've got models like yourselves, which is given that practical example of how we can actually do things differently. Yeah. So let's talk about the famous Buurtzorg. Am I saying it right? Buurtzorg.
That's fine.
Is it fine or is it right?
You have to be Dutch to say it right, Sophie, so don't worry about it.
Oh, well, tell me, how would you say it?
Well, I'm not Dutch, so I'll have a go. Buurtzorg.
Oh, Buurtzorg.
Very good, very good.
See, I can do it. So let's talk about the model. And
I'll tell you what Buurtzorg means, shall I?
Yes.
Because Buurtzorg is the Dutch for neighborhood care. And Buurtzorg as a social enterprise was founded in 2007 by a group of 4 district nurses in the Netherlands who were fed up working within a system which fragmented all the care that people need in home care, in home environments, and which did not allow or enable the professionals providing care to form the kinds of relationships with the people they're supporting and caring for that are needed to really provide person-centered care and promote the independence, if you like, of the people that are being supported. So the goal of Buurtzorg, when it was set up as one team of 4, and there are now 13 years later more than 950 self-managed teams, all working directly employed. Unlike Emma's model, they're all directly employed by one organization. There's now more than 10,000 of them, and Buurtzorg has also created a number of offshoot organizations providing other kinds of care than the core Buurtzorg teams do. And so there's now about 14,500 people working in the Buurtzorg family. But the main Buurtzorg was, as I say, a model founded by and still working through nurses and nurse assistants. And what they do is, their purpose is to enable and support people to live their lives as meaningfully, as healthily, and as autonomously as they can and they wish. And that's done by starting from the perspective of the person needing support and working to co-create with them solutions that strengthen their own agency and networks, that promote their ability to care for themselves, and through their relationships with others, family, neighbors, and others in the local community, build local neighborhoods that are more caring neighborhoods. So if you like, we're working to enable as much independence as people want individually through the interdependence that strong neighborhoods and communities can enable. And in each Buurtzorg team, so the Buurtzorg teams are, as I say, around 950 of them now in the Netherlands. They're composed of up to 12 nurses and nurse assistants, and they provide care and support in a holistic way, by which I mean they do everything from very high levels of clinical support to personal care. And one of the reasons for that is that when Buurtzorg was first founded, and one of the first clients that they had they asked one of their clients how many people he saw from different care organizations over the period of a year or so, and he kept a score on his wall, and he'd seen 70 people, and all of them needed to be told his story over again. So the Buurtzorg model works through local neighborhood teams, as I say, up to 12, composed of nurses and nurse assistants. And one of the things we say is first coffee, then care. What that means is it starts with building a relationship between the professional practitioner and the person needing support, getting to know what matters to them, getting to know what situation they're in, what they want to do, what they can do, what they could do again if they were supported to regain some of the capacities that they might have lost, and to co-create with them a support plan, which is then delivered normally by about 3 or 4 members of the local team, so that there's never just one person per client, but also not too many. And in that way, the Buurtzorg has been able to grow. And now the other crucial thing about it is, if you want that kind of care that is really flexible and person-centered, produced and provided by professionals who build these kinds of relationships with the people they support, obviously you've got to support those professionals to exercise a great deal of freedom and responsibility in an environment of trust, because these are professionals who know what they're doing. They don't need to be told how to do their jobs. What they do need is to be supported to do it as well as possible. So Buurtzorg as an organization doesn't have a management structure. All these teams are self-managed, and it has a back office that provides IT and other supports to the teams, and it's to support and serve those teams rather than to command and control them. And in this way, the professionalism of the practitioners and the self-direction of the people they're supporting is able to co-create and co-produce excellent care and support, and provide really great jobs for the people that do it. And the third element of Buurtzorg's success has been, by working in this way, Buurtzorg has been able to reduce the number of hours of professional input needed per client on average, so that Buurtzorg also uses resources much more effectively and efficiently than the traditional, if you like, way of providing care. So that's a basic introduction to how Buurtzorg works.
Thank you. That was really good, very clear, nicely laid out. So you effectively find that you've got these self-managed teams that have quite a lot of autonomy, and I wonder whether with that there's also an element of, it's almost like having a franchise. So each team has quite a lot of autonomy within it, and there's a lot of things that I am kind of thinking about of asset-based commissioning. So you're starting from the positive side, what has an individual can do. That sounds very familiar. There's also, we were talking with somebody on an earlier live stream about compassionate communities, and they were also talking about the idea of interdependency of these communities and focusing on that. And I just wondered, with the nurses and the nursing assistants, how are they involving those networks? Because obviously there's quite a lot to be done to coordinate everybody who's involved in someone's lives. How are they able to do that and get the community working with the Buurtzorg model?
I'm really glad you asked that, Emma, Sophie, because that's a really key part of the Buurtzorg approach. So it's part of a job of a Buurtzorg team to get to know their local neighborhood, to really get to know all of the various organizations in it, and to think with the people that they're supporting about what kinds of supports are available in that local community. So it's a part of the everyday job is to contribute to and to get to know those networks in a neighborhood, and then to enable the person that's receiving support from Buurtzorg to connect with those networks more effectively. So it's a really crucial part of the approach, which is one of the reasons it's called Buurtzorg, because, excuse me, it's not only providing care at a neighborhood level, but also helping to contribute to the development of, as you put it, compassionate communities. That's really crucial part of the approach.
I love that, because people often talk about social care being part of the community, and we're not recognizing how much of the community it is. But with this model, you're saying we're all about the community. We understand the value of community, and that's what we take as one of our huge values within this this model. And I wonder, so you've obviously, it started not in the UK, but it's being used in the UK. How much uptake have you had? Does your organisation then it's almost the back office for all the different types of teams within the UK, or do you have a different setup with different localities?
Not yet. So I can tell you some of our exciting plans for 2021. What we've done so far, I mean, the way I got into this, Sophie, is that I've been working for 20 years and more in lots of different settings, supporting the democratization of public services, and particularly supporting public service workers to be able to work with more freedom and responsibility, to really exercise their intrinsic motivation more. So that's my background. And then 10 or so years ago, my own mum needed a lot of care. And so I was her principal carer, informal carer, as it were. And I got to know how home care and community nursing worked at a neighbourhood level in London very, very well. And I came out of that experience after my mum died, absolutely determined that everything I'd learned professionally in my work, particularly around the development of self-managed teams within organisations, had now sort of converged with my personal experience. And I decided, well, what we need here is local self-managed teams providing care. So that's what I determined to do. And we then got an opportunity to work with an NHS Foundation Trust to support changes that they wanted to make in partnership with the local authorities in their area, in community nursing and home care, to make them more holistic and bring them together. And by then, I had been looking around the world for examples and experience that matched the vision I wanted for home care in Britain. And I discovered Buurtzorg, and Buurtzorg were kind enough to come and work with us, with that NHS organisation and local authorities, to try out the Buurtzorg approach in that context. Now that I was quite new to health and social care personally, so I needed to learn a lot. And in any case, our goal at that stage was to support change within the system. We're very supportive of public services. We're very supportive of the National Health Service. So we wanted to say, this is what Buurtzorg has done in the Netherlands. How can we contribute to change within the public services in both home care and NHS in Britain? So that set the model for what we've done. And by now, over the last 5 years, since the partnership between Public World, my social enterprise, and Buurtzorg in the Netherlands started, we call that partnership Buurtzorg Britain and Ireland. Since that started, we've now been working in more than 30 different organisations, NHS organisations, local government organisations, and some charities. And what we've learned above all from that is, leaving the charities aside for the moment, it's a bit of a different environment, but although it's a great environment to work with, we were working with some wonderful charities such as the Thistle Foundation and Cornerstone up in Scotland a few years ago. But what we found in the public sector is that we've demonstrated in a number of, if you like, test and learn projects, that if you give an opportunity to professionals providing care, nurses and others, to work in this way, they will respond extremely positively, enjoy it very much, and the quality and the nature of the care they're able to provide is transformed. And a number of our projects, or the projects that we've supported, have been independently evaluated and show that. But where we've struggled is to grow that from those beginnings. And the challenges of doing that are really to do with the way the system's set up and the way organizations currently function, not in a way that with many layers of management, with high levels of hierarchy, with a lot of bureaucracy. And that's the challenge that we've been trying to overcome. So in 2021, we've decided that in addition to continuing to work in that way, we're going to establish Buurtzorg Care UK as a provider in its own right. And we're currently talking to a number of potential partners to work within the public system as a social enterprise to provide care. And one of the reasons we want to do that is because we want to provide the back office supports to the self-managed teams ourselves, because it's very difficult for the existing NHS and local government organisations to make the kind of organisational transformation that's required to support them effectively. One or two, I mean, we are really working at that, and many, I mean, all of the organisations that we work with are really doing great work, but are struggling with that, if you like, organisational transformation that's needed to actually grow this to scale and show not only the great care and the great working lives that it can produce, but also the financial savings it can produce. So we've decided, well, we've been trying this for 5 years. We're going to continue to work with that in that way. Lots of different organisations we're working with, and we'll continue to do so. But we think we'll have a crack also at creating our own social enterprise to provide care at neighbourhood level. And we're quite excited about the potential of primary care networks to enable us to do that across the health and social care divide. Because one of our goals is to break down that fragmentation between health and social care where it doesn't make sense. It does make sense in some cases where somebody doesn't need health care. What they do need is personal support. That's fine. But there are other cases where the same person needs holistic care cutting across that boundary. And Buurtzorg in the Netherlands has shown very successfully how that can work very effectively through their teams of nurses and nurse assistants. So that's something that we want to experiment with in Britain in 2021.
Very exciting. What I wanted to, you've kind of answered it already, because obviously you're led by nurses, but it's not just nursing care that you provide. So presumably the nurses, the nursing assistants, is it to do a lot with personal care, or is this being used for people who don't have caring needs so much as psychological needs or mental health needs or anything like that? Could it work in all areas of social care?
The basics of our model can and do. So we've worked with a number of social care organisations providing care to people with long-term and complex needs in their homes, to people providing home care, just home care, no clinical care at all. And we'll continue to do that because we know that the Buurtzorg way of organising and supporting professionals can be very effective in those settings. But where there is, I think, also a gap is where there is a need for holistic care. So cutting across the health and social care boundary. So we would like to try to find places where the organizations involved, NHS, local government and others in an area, for example, in a primary care network setting, would like to try working in that way with us. Not instead of the home care services that organisations like Equal Care Coop provide, or instead of the great work that organisations like the Thistle Foundation that we're working with in Scotland provide, but as a way of meeting care needs holistically when there is also a clinical need. So Buurtzorg itself, incidentally, in the Netherlands has developed now a new service, which is providing care to people in their homes, a sort of a home help service, and with the same basic approach. So we know this can work in this approach to holistic support and to person-centered support, strengthening communities, and enabling professionals to work with greater freedom and responsibility in self-managed teams and supporting that. We know that can work in lots of settings, but we'd also like to contribute to the integrated health and social care that we that we think is also necessary.
And in terms of the benefits that Emma was talking about, and we will bring her in a second, but with care workers, and they seem to be getting better terms and conditions under her model, do you find the same with the nurses or the nursing assistants or just general staffing team, that they are getting better pay because of the way that you work, because there's less of a hierarchy, or hasn't that yet filtered through because there's still quite a lot of organisational change that needs to happen?
Well, yes and no. I mean, behind me, you can see the banner of the Transforming Integrated Care in the Community project that we're part of, which is working to support the application of the Buurtzorg model in 3 organisations in Kent and also in France and Belgium. And in those organisations, of course, we're working in existing NHS organisations. So the staff involved there are on agenda for change terms and conditions nationally negotiated. So we don't employ those workers; they're employed by the organisations that we're partnering with. However, we also know that, for example, one of the goals of the charity we're working with in Scotland, the Thistle Foundation, is to support the development of self-managed teams, and we're now onto the second cohort of those teams working in a self-managed way, and to transform the way the back office supports them. And in that way, not only provide better care and better working lives, but also use resources more efficiently. And the intention there is to share those financial benefits with the staff themselves by improving pay. Because one of the reasons I came into this was seeing the care workers that were looking after my mum. What I could see was dedicated care workers, in most cases, very compassionate, kind and committed people, and people who were working around dysfunctional systems the best that they could, very badly paid and low status. And one of the things I wanted to in the economy. So what I wanted to try and do was not only to improve care, but improve the working lives and the pay and status of care workers, which I know you want to do too. And I think all of these different initiatives are contributing to that in one way or another.
Thank you. That's really, really helpful. I'm going to bring in Emma, because I think we're going to come on to a conversation now that she'll want to be part of. So I just wanted to really finish. I'm going to just mute you for a second. There's a little bit of echo, Brendan. Yeah, I think I just wanted to come on to the idea. I want to know the scoop, actually, Brendan, of how easy it is to get it, which local authorities, which NHS, which CCGs, who's good, who's working with you, and who are you banging the door and nobody's letting you in. So yeah, I don't know if you can tell us, but I kind of want to know, I want to unpick why it's so easy for you to get in with where areas that you are in at the moment with this model, and why it's really, what are the barriers for commissioning or commissioning authorities for them to just adopt this wholesale? So maybe that's a big question. I don't know. Maybe while Brendan has a think, Emma, you can have a bash at your first thoughts on why we can't do more of what you're doing everywhere.
There's actually no reason why we can't. It's just, I mean, the technology is now there. The governance models are now there. The experimentation to some extent is now there. And some of the big challenges that commissioners tend to have with models like ours, especially the ones that focus on, say, micro providers those sorts of schemes, is that commissioners don't want to have to deal with 200 different people who are all kind of delivering a small section of a service that they have statutory accountability for. That is an absolute, it's not only a nightmare, it's a horrible waste of resources on their part. So what, in terms of kind of the way that we're looking at it, is that you shouldn't have to change the structure of a block contract in order to be able to commission for genuinely relationship-centered, personalized care and support, the kind of care and support that you can expect to get from having a personal budget that you're very experienced in managing over, the past 20 years, which is only available to a very small section of people who receive social care. And there are some councils that are more interested in that than others. There's a network called the Cooperative Councils Innovation Network, or CSIN. So we're talking to a few councils that are members of that. Obviously, we're based up in the Pennines in the Calder Valley, so Rochdale is not very far away from us, and that was where the first co-op in the world started. So Rochdale Council are very keen on cooperative models of care and support, so we're talking having a chat with them, as well as in our home council of Calderdale. But the idea is that we don't need commissioners to move very far in order to be able to commission this type of service. One of the massive problems with commissioning, however, is its fundamental lack of accountability. So that is the problem that we do want commissioners to move on, because commissioning as a whole is fundamentally secretive, unaccountable, and it's impossible to try and track where the money goes from social care budgets, which are the biggest budgets that councils have. Most of it goes straight out of the country. Most of it goes into the big five, all of whom have some kind of hedge fund related investment in their...
Hold on a minute, straight out of the country?
Yeah.
Where does it go straight out of the country? Everyone's living here that needs care.
Well, it goes to the Dow Jones. It goes to Allied Healthcare, which and Southern Cross and quite a few Mears, and kind of in terms of their ownership structures.
Ah, right. Okay.
It all just goes.
Yeah.
And home care is just one of their many portfolios that, if you go onto any of these companies' websites and look at their investor literature, you will hear what they really think about their home care business, their sector. Like, it's it's disgusting, and we want to end it. I mean,
but is there a catch-22 in that? Yeah. Is there a catch-22 in that, in order to get the investment to have these types of setups, you need people to invest? So is there a bigger picture in terms, when people talk about the funding of social care, is that the issue? Is that we're relying on investors who aren't even based here, and we should just say to the public, does everyone just want to pay more for social care, and then we can just manage it all here? And
you've hit on it, absolutely. So it's known as the capital conundrum in cooperative circles, which is, how do you invest in and fund what we are, which is quite a capital intensive new idea, because we're building a piece of digital technology. How do you do that without falling into the same trap as the usual private equity kind of models, which are entirely in hock to their investors? Recent example, the sale of super carers that kind of got bought by Home instead. So all of these platforms are looking for an exit. That is their main reason for being. They are developing so that they can get as much money out of the transaction between the person looking for support and the person giving it. And then they will be able to use that to sell the business on to investors who, also want to use it for the same purposes. So yes, it does go deeper than that. We're applying to the FCA Innovate. I don't know how many people on this call have heard of community shares, but it's a way of investing into co-ops and community benefit societies, where the money used does actually have the benefit that it's intended to. And yeah, we're kind of looking at alternative ways to be able to enable that investment to be able to raise more, basically.
Great. Really, really interesting. I feel like, yeah, that's really explained a lot, and it is a part of a wider conversation, like you said. So Brendan, I'm going to unmute you in a second, but similar question to you. Are you presumably, you're trying to get people talk about this, your model, but it's only a few commissioners who you kind of talk to here and there, but where are we actually going towards moves in actually implementing this, and why do you find it difficult? Or you've always got a plan for 2021, but we're in 2021. your model's been around for years. So why is it taking so long? Is it just to do with commissioning, or is it to do with the provider profile, if you like, of what's being provided at the moment, and the fact that if we've got to deal with what we've got at the moment, that's going to have to change. We can't just scrap everything and start from zero. So is that the challenge, rather than us saying it's all to do about the commissioners and changing their culture? Let's unmute you. There you are.
Well, we've, as I said, we've worked with around 35 different organisations now, and we'll continue to support organisations that want to learn from the Buurtzorg experience about how to change the way they provide care, both whether it be home care or community nursing. But what we're wanting to do that's different from that from now on is also create a Buurtzorg care service itself in Britain. And for that, we haven't had to talk to commissioners up to now, really, because the organisations we've been working with, they're the ones who talk to commissioners. We've been supporting the provider organisations themselves. In the future, though, that will change with Buurtzorg Care UK. But where we're optimistic, although also not rashly so, is, for example, just last week, the NHS England published its plans for the development of integrated care systems, and in particular, enabling place-based care to be provided through partnerships of NHS, local government, voluntary organisations, and others on a place-based based in places. Now, that's a really good starting point to start to devolve authority in that way. What we're hoping for, and indeed agitating for, is that one step further of that, if you like, devolution of authority needs to happen, so that at a primary care network level, there can be experimentation in bringing together local health and social care at home, provided in the Buurtzorg way through local self-managed teams, to experiment with what can be done and learn from it and demonstrate what can be done successfully, what we need to change, and get that learning going. And so we're hoping that the logic of NHS England devolving more authority to local level will be followed through, so that, and I don't think it will require very much more than that, enabling those experimentations to take place at local level. And the commissioners at local level, if they want to, can come together and enable that to happen immediately.
Right.
And they need the support of NHS England to do so. So we're very optimistic that they will do so. But we also know that the culture of centralisation and hierarchy and command and control can also be expressed at local level. So this is a conversation we need to have about how you create conditions for the basic relationships between the practitioners and the people they're supporting to be able to flower and build the organizational supports outward from there. We say integration should start around the person needing support, not around organizations. Let the organizational integration flow from there.
What I love about this conversation is, for so many years you hear people talk about person-centered care and they talk about integration, do things differently. And I'm thinking, oh, this is great for a conference, but how do you actually do this? Is this really going to work in reality? And what both of you have brought tonight is the reality of how it works and how things can be done differently. And it's so refreshing to see it in practice. And what you just said, Brendan, reminds me that there is a consultation out at the moment. And I think, I don't know if my colleague in the background can put something in the chat to remind me what it's called, but it's to do, I think, the NHS or the Department of Health and Social Care, probably more NHS England, maybe, I don't know. They're consulting about ICSs. And I think the consultation, is there, and there's a consultation that ends on the 8th of January. And I wonder whether, us as an organisation, we can push that people need to, if you tell them that this type of model works and that when they are commissioning services, and if they want to look at the community and they want to look at how ICSs work, they need to be talking to organisations like yourselves to see how that model can be used more often. If more of us use, that's the way that we can get our democratic voice heard, for them to make decisions based on what we tell them, is to get involved in these consultations. So we will look at how we could promote that, I think. And if people have listened to this tonight and thought this is great, let's see more of this, they can also put their comments in that consultation. But I noticed we are just a minute over past the hour, but I do want to give you both an opportunity just to say a last couple of words, and maybe if you've got people from commissioning or people who are using services that are interested in finding out more about you, how they might get in touch, or anything else you want to mention in sort of the last 30 seconds or so. Can I start with you, Emma?
Yes, so we're launching our next couple of services in Rochdale and possibly Islington, weirdly, but we'll see. But yes, very much talking to commissioners at the moment, and also prospective investors for our second community share offer that's coming out in March. And also note, we don't really ever talk about person-centred anymore, because it doesn't seem to make sense in the context of how services are structured. So relationship-centred is what we talk about, and that feels like it makes much more sense in terms of good care and support. And thank you so much, Sophie, for hosting us. This has been wonderful. Oh,
I'm so glad you've enjoyed it. I feel like I'm going to invite you back again, because I just want to hear from both of you again. But yeah, that's lovely to end on. Thank you for that, Emma. And Brendan, any last couple of words you want to say?
Thank you very much, Sophie and the team, for having us. Always happy to hear from any organisation that would like to learn from us, to work with us, to learn about how to change their organisations, to enable their professionals to work in a self-managed way, and what kind of changes that involves. And very keen to hear from anybody in the system that would like to work with us at local level to try the Buurtzorg approach through the Buurtzorg Care UK that we're setting up in the new year. So if we can support people to do what they want to do better, we're very happy to hear from them. And if we can support local primary care networks and integrated care systems to work in the Buurtzorg way and to experiment with us and partner with us, we'd love to hear from you. And you can do that through buurtzorg.org.uk.
Thank you so much. That was nice and easy. We've been putting all your links at the bottom of the screen, and we'll put them in the description of this video as well, so people can stay in touch. Thank you both very much, and for spending your time, your hour with us. Do take care. Thank you very much, both of you. So there you go. That was really exciting. I really enjoyed that, and I hope you did too. I always, with these talks on commissioning, we just open up the debate to so many other things. So yeah, fantastic. And what we will do, if you don't forget to follow us on Twitter, we're going to talk about this, and we're probably going to link it to that consultation I just talked about, which I can't give you too much information on because I don't have it in front of me. But I think that would be a really good way to highlight these new ways of working and to tag lived examples that we can't assume that our health and social care leaders know about, because they probably don't. So we can make sure that we get them highlighted. And also, just before we sign out, just to remind you that we have, hopefully, if you signed up to our mailing list, you'll have in your inbox our report. We did a rapid review from a survey that we asked people to fill out for people who work in social care as to their confidence in taking any of the possible available vaccines, COVID vaccines. And it was a really interesting report. There is quite a lot of hesitancy there in the sector. And what we did, we just didn't want to just farm out figures, because the headline figure was that 41% of the people that we surveyed said that they weren't keen on taking, but they weren't going to take the vaccine. And that was done quite recently. So at the end of November, the last just over a week of November, just shortly before the announcements of the vaccine that is currently being rolled out. So it's quite new information, but we're not just farming out the figures, we're also looking at the reasons behind why people have that hesitancy. And they are quite valid, reasonable reasons, where people talk about the indications, so how it interacts with other health conditions they might have, or other medications they might have. They talk about disability. They talk about not having enough information to make an informed decision around whether to take the vaccine or not. So I think from what we have some recommendations, we have some implications that we've written up in our report, and we'd love it if people could have a read, see what they think, give us some feedback. So if you just pop onto our website and subscribe to our mailing list, then we will share that with you absolutely free. Or if you just fancy just messaging us on social media or emailing us, we'll make sure you get that report. So we're going to share that with you, see what you think. But for now, we've had a fantastic live stream, really enjoyed it, and I hope you all have too. And we very much look forward to seeing you again. We will be doing some more live streams. There might be another one before Christmas, probably to break down our report. The best way of finding out when we are going live next is to, I'm going to say it, subscribe and click the bell if you're watching us on YouTube. And obviously, if you're not, then you can like our page on Facebook, but YouTube is a great way to do it, just because you get the notifications quite easily, and I'm more familiar with that, but I think you can do the same in Facebook. And obviously, if you're on Twitter or Facebook, then we put all our live streams and when we're going to go live on that as well. So that's enough from us. I hope you've enjoyed our guests this evening. I hope you've enjoyed our 3 live streams over the last couple of weeks, exploring commissioning and social care. I don't think that gets enough airtime. I hope we've done it justice. We'd love your comments on this and whatever else you want us to cover, because we're just hoping to highlight more issues and conversations in social care that don't get enough airtime. So please do engage with us, and we very much look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.